Aditya, you're live.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
you are audible, Aditya.
Yeah. This is Aditya Acharya from Scope 10 in Private Limited. I'll be taking the today's topic of Ruggedcom Switches offerings from Scope. So we'll wait for 3-4 minutes to all people to join. Then we'll start the today's topic.
Aditya, I think we can start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aditya Acharya from Scope 10 Private Limited. Our today's topic is regarding networking devices and components used in utilities and industries, their applications. So, warm welcome all. Okay. So, coming to that Ethernet switch. So, what is the Ethernet switch? Actually, Ethernet switch is a hardware device that filters and forward network packets from one networking device to another. Imagine there are multiple devices are there with particular IP addresses, and those need to transmit the data to other devices over certain data packets. So it acts as a junction for those data packets to transmit from one device to other device. One device can be a router, computer, server, other device, similarly other server or other router. So it's act as a intermediary devices for transmitting of data packets from one point to another point. You can call it as node. If aware about that OSI model, that are 7 layers in a data transmissions functionality. So it uses multiple layer to communicate between multiple devices. Here is a pictorial representation. You can see one LAN network where the switch is connected to multiple devices. So data transmission between these devices can happen through these network switches. Then what are the type of Ethernet switches then? Normally there are 3 type of switches. One is unmanaged switch, one is managed switch, one is PoE switch. What is LAN switch? Actually, LAN switch is a local area network switch that connects all the devices in that local area network. It can be managed switch, it can be unmanaged switch. I'll discuss what is unmanaged switch. Unmanaged switch is that it's a simple plug and play switch. It doesn't have any particular MAC ID address, so that one device will transmit the data package through that MAC address. It can manually it will go based on the connections. So normally when we uses a LAN network and that too of a substation, normally prefer a managed switch. So managed switch also, there are 2 type of managed switch, layer 2 and layer 3 managed switch. I'll go in detail in the latter stage, where we can configure the ports. In unmanaged switch, you can configure those ports, but in a managed switch, you can configure those ports. So then what is the PoE switch? One managed switch can be utilized as a PoE switch if it support both power and data transmission. Normally switches are utilized for data transmission from one node to other node. Whereas if you want to power on a connected device, like power on security camera from these switches itself, so you have to use the PoE switch. It's called power and Ethernet switch. It will simplify your cabling process and network cost also. Then, as I discussed, what is layer 2 switch and what is layer 3 switch? Layer 2 switch, these both layer 2 and layer 3 switch are managed network switches. In simple language, you can say if it's connected within a same network, all the devices, then it's called as a layer 2 switch, where you utilizes MAC address to determine the path through where the frames can be forwarded. In a LAN-based network, you can use a layer 2 switch. Whereas layer 3 switch has 2 applications, like it can act as a switch and act as a router to different network. There are different network. We need to connect between 2 different network. Then you need to use a layer 3 switch. It will connect to LAN network, to wide area networks, and internet service provider networks. So in that case, you have to use layer 3 switch. Then what are the type of ports? If anyone having any queries, you can just drop your queries in the chat box. So we'll reply to it. So coming to the type of ports. Ethernet switch is a hardware device. So to connect it with multiple nodes, multiple other devices, you need ports. So wired connection will be happening through that ports. So there are multiple ports based on the application, like what is your speed application, what is your length application, how much length the distance the data packet need to travel without any attenuation. Those define what type of ports you require in an Ethernet switch. Commonly, there are two type of technology being used in Ethernet switches. One is Ethernet port, a RJ45 connector, you can say, and another is FO port. There are multiple connectors. I'll go in the next slide what are those connectors. So let's understand what is a Ethernet port or LAN port with RJ45 connector, what is a FO port, what is the major difference. Ethernet ports are generally used for up to 1 gigabit speed, not suitable for higher speed requirement of 10 gigabit and higher. So for a application of less speed and a distance of 100 meter, you can use Ethernet ports and LAN cables for transmission of data packets. Whereas if you require the higher speed, like 10 gigabits and more, and the distance of data transmission is higher, more than 500 meter, then you have to go for fiber optic ports. Then what is a fiber optic ports? As we all read in our physics about fiber optics, like how the lights, LED lights or laser lights being transmitted through a optical fiber core by using its angle of reflection. So the light will pass, it will reflect, and it will transmit through that optical fiber core. Because of that transmission through light, so its speed increases. You can transmit the data to larger distance. So it's a better mode of communication. So in fiber also there are two type of communication. One is multi-mode fiber communication, and another is single mode. So what is the major difference? Multi-mode, you use multiple lights being transmitted concurrently with different reflection angle. Normally, because of multiple lights are being used, so the distance of transmission is maximum you can go up to 2 kilometer. That will depend on the speed you are preferring. If you are going for 100 Mbps speed, then maximum up to 2 kilometer you can transmit without much attenuation. If the speed increases, let's say for 1 gigabit, it can transmit up to 1 kilometer. For 10 gigabit, it can transmit up to 500 meter. So normally multi-mode fiber communication used within a substation where the distance is not more than 1 kilometer per se. You can use multi-mode cables and subsequently Ethernet switches with multi-mode ports to transmit data from one node to another node. Whereas the distance increases beyond 2 kilometer, like distance is 10 kilometer, there are from one substation to a control center, which is located around 5 kilometer distance. You need to to establish a data communication, you need to lay a FO cable. For that, you need to use single mode fiber. Single mode fiber can be used for long distance communication. Beyond 10 kilometers and more, you can go for single mode. It uses single light instead of multiple light and lasers. Then coming to connectors, like in Ethernet, there are RJ45 connectors. But connector in the sense that your cables being terminated in the switch, that termination is called as a connector. So if it's a Ethernet port, then RJ45 connectors are normally used. If it's a FO port, then there are multiple connector like ST connector, SC connector, LC connector. Based on application, you can use. Normally, ST connector are more popular because there are simple uses. You can go for LC connector if you are using a form factor small SFE switches. Then you have to go with LC connector. So based on your application, you can choose the connectors. Then coming back to Ruggedcom switches. So what is the difference between a normal a rugged switch and a normal switch that is available in the market? There are switches you can find of very low cost. It can do the transmission of data packets from one node to another node. But what is the differentiation Ruggedcom switches has? Ruggedcom switches supports multiple protocols like RSTP protocol, PRP protocol, HSR protocol. These are the protocols normally used in a substation automation system. What is PRP protocol? PRP protocol normally is a redundancy protocol. That means at any time, any given time, your data transmission will not be affected because of any failure. There will be redundancy. If one port goes away, then another port data will transmit through another port. So Ruggedcom supports all these protocols, and it's rugged. As from its name, you can find out it's rugged. So you can operate in harsh environment like you will find in a plant or in a substation. So it's suitable for industrial application. So where it is used, I already said that it can be used whenever a data communications is required. Whenever there is a network, there are multiple network need to be connected. In that case, our Ruggedcom switches and router can be used. It can be used in utilities like distribution, transmission, generation plants. It can be used in railways for telecommunication purpose also. It can be used in defense, aviation. So our switches caters to multiple industries. So what are the key features of a Ruggedcom switches? It can operate on technology of layer 2 and layer 3. Layer 2 means within a single network, you can connect multiple devices. If you want to connect two networks, then you can use the layer 3 technology. Then there comes cyber security enabled. These are KEMA certified, IEC 650 compliant. You can do goods communication through these switches. As I say, already told, HSR PRP compliant switches, and these are highly available and industrial installations. So these are the key features of offered Ruggedcom switches. Reliable operation in a harsh electrical environment. Suppose these IEC regulations. Error-free operation in high EMI environment like zero packet loss technology, error-free performance under EMI stress. It supports all these key features. Temperature, as I said, it can operate from minus 40 degree to plus 85 degrees centigrade. Highly available. Normally, whenever you are selecting, there is a requirement of switches. What you need to specify, I'll just tell you that. You need to specify that whether you require a dual redundant power supply switch or single redundant power supply switch. If you opt for redundant power supply, then in case of power supply failure, your switch will be still in operation because of redundancy. And there are various ranges of power supply based on the availability of power supply at your substation at your plant level. If the voltage level you are having 24 volt DC at your substation, then you can ask for a switch with 24 volt DC power supply. Similarly, 48 volt DC power supply, 110 volt power supply, or a universal power supply. Here you are seeing 88 to 300 volt DC or 85 to 264 volt AC. This is the universal power supply module, which can support very varied range of both AC and DC power supply. Whatever may be your power availability, it can take and power on, and it can work on those available power supplies. Then how it works? Normally, why these switches are important of in an industrial application, in a utility application. Normally, substation nowadays is we are going into digitalization, where in the substation there are normally two levels, two buses. One is process bus, another is station bus. So what is the process bus? Because you need to monitor all those parameters, station parameter like breaker status, controlling those breakers, other parameter like overcurrent relay status, earth fault relay status, then city input, PT input, all those parameters you want to monitor. So for that, the data need to be transmitted to your SCADA software. It will be transmitted through these networking devices called switches. So the lower one is called process bus. So this process bus is nothing but the switchyard equipments like your CT, your PT, your breakers, DIDO hardwaring and all. So there are normally this type of automation technology being utilized in India generally, where process bus are not digitalized. You can see the CT PT inputs are coming to a merging unit, and then from the merging unit it's going to the network switch, and all the IDs in the sense like relays, number of different relays like your distance relay for line, your differential relay for transformer, your overcurrent earth fault relays. All relays signals are being hardwired to those IDs, and from that IDs it will be connected to the switches over certain protocol. Normally in a switches substation environment, IC 61850 protocol being used, being preferred as a standard. So over IC 61850 protocol, it will be connected to the switch, and switch will be connected to the other servers. From that server, you can visualize your substation parameter on a local SCADA HMI, and you can transmit it to an SLDC or remote control center through a gateway. So this is a typical application where we utilize switches at station level, station bus level, not in the process bus level. This is the advanced application where instead of analog CT and PT, there are CT PT coming with digital outputs. So the input of CT and PT will be connected, terminated directly in the Ethernet switches, and it will then connected to the station bus like the previous case. Only changes here is that in the process bus, all the signals are coming in the digital forms, in data packets forms. No analog signals, no hardwaring is required. Because in case of hardwaring, there are wear and tear. Because of wear and tears, the cables being cut down from in between. So data losses will be there. Speed of the transmission will be less. So all those advantages of data communication over data packets on TCP/IP will be applicable here if you are going for a process bus based architecture. So, but nowadays it's getting popular, but still not yet implemented in this Indian context. If you say in Indian industries or utilities, because there are previously installed CTs, PTs, we are giving the signals over analog form. So you need to retrofit those signals, those CT, PT into digital one. So there is a cost involved. So that's why it's not that popular, but it's the future where the process bus will also involve networking components, will also involve switches. This is a similar architecture. It's connected to wide area network, might connected to multiple other networks like a control center, MCC, VCC principle, you can say, or SLDC. So coming to Ruggedcom Portfolio, actually we at Scope, we started tying up with Siemens Ruggedcom products around 5 or 6 years back. Prior to that, we had site experience of installing switches and installing switches and doing service related work through our sister concern company called ISSPL Private Limited, ISO Sales and Service Private Limited. So we had the experience of installing the switches and router and configuring it. So we want to leverage that experience and our expertise into giving these Ruggedcom products to our customers. So we tied up with Siemens and we started offering those solutions, networking solutions to customers. So coming to Ruggedcom portfolio, there are multiple portfolios are there. Like if you see here, RX 1500, 1501, 1510, these are all layer 3 switches or routers, which connects multiple networks and transmit data between multiple networks and do the routing functions. So then there are layer 2 switches. These are the layer 2 switches: RSG 2488, RSG 2100, RSG 2200, or 2300. I'll just briefly briefly explain about these switches. The RSG 2100 is the most popular switches and most widely used switches in the industries and utilities. It's have 19 ports, 16 normal 100 Mbps speed ports and up to 3 gigabit speed ports, can be either Ethernet or FO. Similarly, RST2300, it's have by default 24 copper ports having speed from 100 MB, 10 Mbps, 100 Mbps to gigabit speed limit. So these are all layer 2 switches. There are a compact version of layer 2 switches are also available that are less number of ports are there, like maximum 9. You can say RS900 means maximum 9 ports are there. It can be a Dindel mount switch, easy to mount within some panels. So switches also we are offering. Apart from switches, router, we also offer network management software, which multiple nodes within a network, and will let you know which nodes are operating fine or which nodes are down. So you can monitor on real-time basis by using network managing system software. Application as I already informed, substation automation, substation SaaS application we just discussed, where you can utilize used network switches for both process bus and station bus. industrial Ethernet switch application, you want to establish a LAN network within a plant, you can use these switches to connect multiple devices. Then there are rail solution, time synchronize, railway application also you can use, or you can use it for time synchronization application. So what are the value addition we are as a scope we are giving by tying off with Siemens Ruggedcom switches? So we have offered that NTMC flagship project of Power Grid, where we offered the layer 3 switches and one routers to Power Grid. Around 200 to 50 odd quantities of layer 3 switches and router being supplied and successfully being installed and commissioned independently by us without much intervention of Siemens. So we have that expertise. We do site surveys to understand what is the exact requirement of networking components, like how many number of ports are required to connect in a LAN. What is the application, like FO ports are required, or RJ45 Ethernet ports are required based on the distance of data transmission or speed of data transmission. So all those things, we have the expertise, we do, and we give a complete solution apart from those networking components. We also provide services. We have trained service engineers to give the services of the existing Ruggedcom switches you are having some issues. We can also offer our services to rectify those issues if some ports are not communicating or something like that. So what are the scopes, strengths, and expertise? We're official partners of Siemens of Ruggedcom, technical expert, because we had the technical experience of executing networking orders through multiple EPCs. So buyback of old switches, you can give us the old switches and we can provide you a new switches in the buyback form. We have Pan India service for quick service call. So these are our strengths, our expertise. And as I already told, these are few customers, valued customer like PGC. We have supplied switches and router in PGCL and continually supplying MSCTCL, Tata Power, VHEL, other utilities, TNAV. So there are multiple customers we have already supplied and are also supplying and giving services. So okay, that's from my end. So anything? Any queries? You can just drop in that chat box. Hello, Sanket sir, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, Sanket sir.
Yeah, Aditya, can you just let everyone know that how cyber secured Ruggedcom switches are, and why they are now being given more emphasis? Because as per the new norm, all these network management products need to be certified. Hello? Yeah, I think Aditya has lost his connection. We'll wait for 2 minutes for him to join back. Just give me a minute. I'll ask him to join back.
Hello. Sorry, I just lost connection. So Can you just repeat? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, Aditya, I was asking you that would it be possible for you to explain that how cyber secure these Ruggedcom switches are from Siemens, which we are talking about, and why it is important to have such a cyber secured uh, switches now, and how these new government norms are helping Ruggedcom switches.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. Actually, cybersecurity is much important nowadays for utilities to have, because the data, critical data, are being transmitted from one location to other location, one node to other node. So there are chances of foreign intrusion. Your data may be hacked. So having a cyber security feature like those certain certification is nowadays mandatory, and we provide those certifications and cyber security so our offered switches and solutions. Yeah, any more questions? I'm going through the chart.
There are no questions in the chat room as yet.
Okay, okay, fine. So there is one request. If you find it useful, you can. We have shared one Google form. You can just fill in, and if revert us back, we can. It can help us to
Yeah,
certain parameters.
Aditya, there are two questions now which I can see. One is from Mr. Hemendra Pratap Sisodia. He asked that is any license is required for switches monitoring. I am still not clear what exactly he wants to know. So, I think again we have lost Aditya. We'll wait for a minute for him to join.
Yeah, yeah. I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, you hear? Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, have you heard the question? I have asked you the question. Mr. Sisodia is asking that any license requirement is required for the switches monitoring.
Yeah. So for switches monitoring, there is a software called NMS software, network management software. So if you want to procure those software, it's based on number of nodes you need to monitor. Like if you want to monitor around 54 nodes, there is a different licensing. If you want to monitor 128 nodes, there are different licensings. So based on the here in the sense number of devices, number of switches that are connected in a network. So those can be called as a node. So if you want to do monitor whether those nodes are operating fine or not on real-time basis, so you need to let us know what is your requirement on number of nodes. Based on that, licensing can be provided. Hope sir it clears your query.
There is another question. What is SNMP role?
MP role actually. Yeah, SNMP is a simple network management protocol. Like I said regarding that PRP and HSR protocol, these are used for redundancy. So for transmission of data, these normal simple network management protocol are being used. SNMP is an application layer protocol normally that uses UDP port number 161/162 SNMP, which is used to monitor the network. So if you are if you are going for a NMS software, then your switch shall be compliant with SNMP protocol.
Thanks, Aditya. Another question. Are we providing services for patch update of old switches?
We are only providing services of patch update for Ruggedcom make switches, not other make switches. So if you can share the exact model and its MLFB configuration, we can provide the services.
Yeah, I think Mr. Chidmay, I think Aditya has answered to your question. Aditya, can you tell that how this switches are helping in the digitization? Like we know that new systems are coming in for substation automation. Substation automation systems are coming in, or there is a local SCADA has been procured, and how these switches can help the customer, because generally this type of switches would be given to the customer either through their procurement of substation automation system or through their SCADA systems whenever they procure this. So how important these switches are, because uh, and how these switches can give them reliable outputs, that also you can tell them about.
Yeah, very rightly said. As I already typical architecture of a digital substation, where the process bus and station bus data are being communicated to a local SCADA or a remote SCADA. So when as nowadays we are moving away from that conventional method of monitoring and controlling parameter, either it's a substation or be it a plant. And there are multiple devices that are operating concurrently. You need to monitor them on real-time basis. So going by the conventional method of log sheet and noting down those parameters like what is the voltage, what is the current, is not a feasible option nowadays. So most of the conventional substation are being converted into automation based substation, be it a local SCADA based substation or a local remote SCADA based substation, or be it a local SCADA based plant parameter monitoring software. So when we discuss data transmission will happen through data packets. So, and for those data packets to move from one device to other device, one you say one digital device to other digital device. Like here in a substation environment, you can say those IDs, relays, BCUs are one digital devices. Those are giving all the parameters like overcurrent overcurrent relay status, arc fault relay status, then breaker on off control, and other voltage current parameter signals. So those signals can be transmitted to your local SCADA or to a remote SCADA through a gateway by means of these network switches, because you can't connect multiple devices, multiple IDs, multiple relays directly into server, because server has limited number of ports which can accept data packets. So for that to happen, we normally use intermediary switches, where all those digital devices will terminate it, and one end will be connected to your server, which will show you those IDs. So whenever it comes to digitalization of substation, digitalization of industries, you require these Ethernet switches, and you require routers. If multiple networks are being involved, then you could require routers.
There is another question, Aditya. What is the life of RSG 2100? It's been asked by Mr. Sisodia.
Yeah, RSG 2100 life generally declared by Ruggedcom is around 10 years. So within 10 years, it's a device, it can work beyond 10 years, but normally as declared by Ruggedcom, based on various type testing and all, it can run up to 10 years. Yeah, I hope we cleared all the queries. If anything more is there.
Hold on for a minute. If there are no more questions, we would like to ask you to fill up the feedback form. The link is in the chat box at the top of the chat box. You can just click onto it and give your feedback. Other than this, just a small information would like to share with you. Like we in the next week, we would be coming up with another two webinars. One under our scope support webinar series, which would be based on the TTRM, whereas the under subscription Saturdays series, that is the next Saturday, it would be on battery loading units or the battery discharge units. So the whenever the forms are out, please register to it and attend it. Both the things are interesting topics like TTRM, how to use, what to do, and what not to do would be done, would be explained on this particular webinar. It would be on Friday at 3 p.m., whereas the other webinar would be on Saturday on battery loading unit, which would be on Saturday at 3 p.m., same as today. So that's it from our end. Aditya, would you?
One more thing. Yeah, I just shared one link, Ruggedcom selector. Like if any of our customers is having any requirement, they can directly go to this Ruggedcom selector portal. There they can select number of type of switches they want to look in. Like if they require layer 2 switches of higher number of ports, per se 60 number of copper ports, then they can select RSG2100. There they can select what is the power supply requirement that I was saying. If a single power supply is required or dual power supply is required, if dual power supply is required, then what is the ranges of power supply is required. Like if it is 24 volt DC or 48 volt DC or a universal both AC and DC power supply is required. Then what is the port configuration, whether you require Ethernet switch on front or back, you require power connector on front or back, you require the indication LEDs on front or back, you can select from there. There are conformal coating if you require, you can select there. And there are number of ports you can select, like I require 60 number of copper ports. You just select two copper ports of 8 line item. Based on that, you'll ask for what is the speed requirement, like 10 Mbps slash 100 Mbps you require, or you require gigabit speed. Based on that, there will be in the very downside, you will see one MLFB code being generated. If you share this code, we can give you the offer for the same. Yes, Mitesh sir, will share that PDF of the presentation. Sanket sir will share.
Yeah. I think
Okay, that's for my side. Thank you everyone for being a good listener. I have something, I've contributed something regarding this Ruggedcom and the Ethernet switches.
thank you, Aditya. We will
Thank you.
close this session.
Yeah.